Hi, everybody. Well, I tell you, I talked with you, I think it was a couple of days, maybe a couple of weeks, maybe even a month or two ago about how great the 1949 Pirates were playing. Well, we've gone through a little bit more of the season. We're at, what was this day here today? Was in May 18th, I believe. Let me take a look here at my notes. Yes, May 18th. And the Giants are 22-7. So after 29 games, they've only lost 7 times. They've won 22, which is a pretty impressive record, if I do say so myself. They were in first place, and they're starting to run away with this, and you better watch out. You're probably wondering what in the world happened in real life and what it looked like at this time. So we'll go ahead and take a look at this just for some fun, just so we can get into the replay. So the first thing you have to remember before we talk about like what this looks like compared to real life is that when I'm playing this, I'm playing every single game as scheduled, not as played. We're not doing rainouts. We're not doing, rescheduling for double headers and all this other stuff. We're just going to play the games as scheduled. There's a reason why I do this. I know there were tie games and all this stuff, but we want to make sure that it's as even as possible. There's a method behind my madness, and this will make sense as the years go by. There's no way I'm going to finish this replay in a year. You can tell by the pace we're going at, but eventually, as we start really making pace into this and maybe moving into other replays, you'll see why it's so important for me to make sure that we have even schedules and to make sure that things are fair and we don't have some teams playing like 156 games and some teams playing like 150 or whatever, right? We're trying to make this realistic in the sense that teams are playing constantly games against each other the way that it was intended to be, not necessarily the way that it turned out. So we'll go ahead and take a quick look over here and see what's happened. I've made this screen a little bit bigger. Hopefully this is visible. My apologies. I know that the proper way to do this in YouTube would be like to create, I don't know, like a PowerPoint or to create, to go in and mess around with having pictures that appear and disappear and all that stuff. Whatever, man. I'm going to be honest with you. I care about getting my point out. I don't care so much about doing a whole bunch of fancy stuff. I'm not impressing anybody. What did we say that the date was? It was the 18th, right? Yeah, the 18th of May. And so we'll take a look here and see. In real life, the Giants were 16-11. So compared to 22-7, I mean, we're looking at right about the same amount of games played. I think we got 2 less games played in real life than in the replay. And the Giants were in first place at the end of the day. In real life, the Giants were tied with the Boston Braves for first place. You'll remember this Boston Braves team that I've talked about. This was a team that started to fight against its own manager and was having all sorts of problems. There were all sorts of issues in the Boston newspapers. You can go back yourself and look those up and read about. And this Boston Braves team was not necessarily the sort of team of destiny that they were in 1948. The Red Sox, interesting enough, I haven't noticed this until right now, they were below 500 at this point in time in real life. Yankees, of course, were dominant, and this is a Yankee team without Joe DiMaggio. So 49 is a fascinating season when you look at this. Every season in baseball history, though, in my mind, is fascinating. There's always something interesting going on. And look at this pennant race, man. The Braves, the Giants, the Reds, and the Dodgers. Well, we don't have that. We don't have that kind of like everything mixed together type feeling. So a little bit different for us here in the simulation world. But when you look at this Giant team and how they were afterwards, I mean, they were in first place here through mid-May. They went back into first place late May, as late as the Labor Day doubleheaders or the Memorial Day doubleheaders, I should say. Even into June, they were in first place. And then right here, when they lost this game 3-0 to the Cardinals, that's kind of what did it. We can take a quick look here and see. That shows you how close things were when you go from first to fourth after a single game, right? So, and this is what happened. Look at this. The Cardinals were on a winning streak, and they were 24-19. The Giants 26-20, right? They've almost won 26 games now in this replay. They've only lost 7. So we're looking at a team that's performing very, very differently than in real life. And this is where the Cardinals kind of jumped up. And of course, the Dodgers were up at the top. But after that one loss to the Cardinals by the Giants, they ended up falling behind the Braves and the Cardinals, and the Dodgers were in first place, and that's what happened. I'm telling you, 49 is a fascinating season, isn't it? Giants never really recovered from that, ended up with 3 games. They lost that whole series to the Cardinals, lost 2 out of 3 to the Pirates, and that's where they found themselves in 5th place, and then the magic was gone. And that's pretty much how it was for the rest of the season. They did climb up to third place in August, but if you look closely at this record, this isn't a spectacular record, right? I mean, they were not winning more games than they were losing for sure. back to fifth, a little bit of time in fourth, and they ended up finishing the season in fifth place with that 73-81 record. So you can look at this. I think that this team is probably an underrated team, at least based upon how I've been playing with them so far. I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't spent a whole lot of time looking into what the transactions were like. I'm certain that there were probably a couple of trades that didn't really work in favor of Leo DeRocher. But, having played with this team for a while, I'll tell you that Willard Marshall especially was a very good player. You look at this guy also. I mean, again, I mentioned this during the broadcast, so if you haven't watched it, you should. Look at Marshall. He only strikes out 20 times in the season. He's got a little bit of power, 19 doubles, 12 home runs. I mean, he has a 429 slugging percentage, 123 OPS plus. Don't come around and tell me that you have to be a Hall of Famer to be able to have a low number of strikeouts and to have a lot of extra base hits. This is the thing that people keep telling me, and I'm thinking, look at this team. The whole team is filled with players who struck out very, very seldom and who had very good slugging percentages, except for Buddy Kerr, but that wasn't really his job, right? Sid Gordon, another example. I don't know, is Gordon in the Hall of Fame? No. Two-time All-Star. Most people don't remember him. I don't know much about him, right? Bobby Thompson, we mentioned before. Bobby Thompson, an excellent offensive player, mostly known for that famous home run in 1951, not known for much else. 110 OPS plus, okay, maybe not the best in the world. 33.7 WAR, nowhere near Hall of Fame quality. It's interesting. I didn't realize he was with the Milwaukee Braves for a little while right before their World Series days, and then he ended up with the Cubs, Red Sox, and Orioles by the end of his career, faded into obscurity. But when you look at Thompson and his ability to hit, man, this guy was making contact. Now, we can debate about this, but the reason why I want to bring this up is that it's actually true that you can have very good teams that have full offenses that do not strike out a lot and yet still somehow are able to hit for extra bases. Now, what I'm going to say about this is that if we don't start like Buddy Kerr at short, I don't know, did Rigney play much short? Did Lork? If we had somebody else in there with a better bat than this, right? 209, 284, 227, you put Rigney in there. I don't know. Let's take a look and see what he did in fielding in 1949. So what we do is we go over here to the game logs, check out his 49 fielding logs and see, if we play him at short, are we breaking the law? I don't know. Look at this. Second base short, second base short. Do I see any example or any indications of major injuries? Not really. Right, and this is the question that you have, which is, what if instead of giving so much time to Buddy Kerr, we give a little bit more of Kerr's time over to Rigney and allow Rigney to do that fielding at short and have his bat in the lineup? Maybe we'll do okay, huh? Anyway, we can take a look. What I'm looking for here is an example of the number of games he was playing. Let's see, he had 89 games there at short, compared to a Rigney who wound up with, this isn't going to tell me very much, is it? There we go, 81. So you could do it really either way, right? I guess we could look into platooning the two, right? Now, the easy way to look that up is you go over here, you go down to the bottom, you go over to the defensive lineups. This will tell you a lot faster than any stupid thing I'm going to do. And yeah, you can see that at shortstop, you had Rigney with 71 starts and Kerr with 69. But let's say that instead of ever starting Buddy Kerr, because he's not a very good hitter, 12 WAR in his career, we decided to start Rigney instead with his 7.6 WAR. Maybe we would do all right. I don't know. I don't even want to talk about this WAR rating. And, I'm assuming that when we look at his player value, we're going to look at our field that's hurting him, whereas for Kerr, our field helps him, right? So that gives you a little idea of what's going on. But, forget about all of that. We don't care so much about, what his adjusted statistics are or anything like that. What we care about is, can the guy get it done? 103 OPS plus is very good, right? Well, we're going to start the 103 OPS plus guy and have the 39 OPS plus guy sit down. If you're not familiar with OPS plus, I don't know what rock you've been living under, but it's all right. 100 is sort of average. Technically average, I think, ends up being a little bit under 100, but it's designed so that 100 is around average. And so you get a guy who's, what was this again? 103. That's going to end up being fairly good. That's a good guy to have in your lineup when everybody else is, every other starter is over 100. You get the guy who's 39. Yeah, this guy's going to be sitting on the bench eating pine. So anyway, that's sort of the idea that I have. And maybe if we do something like that, we'll be able to take the 49 Giants and help make pennant winners out of him. I just realized as I was looking at this, Buddy Kerr didn't die that long ago, 2006. 2001 is when Bill Rigney passed away. So, all that's in my lifetime is amazing to think about. 84 years old for him, 83 for him. So these are guys who are very well aged. Anyway, I'm just rambling now, but this is sort of what we have going on for these Giants, right? I do think that this is a team that maybe will be able to keep it up. I don't know. I like the look of the starting rotation. When I look at the number of games started, I'm not seeing any of these guys really having problems going forward. I don't see any starting pitchers here who look absolutely awful. I mean, we know about Larry Jansen. We've seen him. Dave Koslow went 11-14 in real life. Well, he's 5-1, I think, 6-1 now after that win. 2.50 ERA, but only the where is it? 160 ERA plus. Yes, I'm looking over at earned runs. This is very, very good. In fact, this is a good starting rotation. That's a pennant competing starting rotation. Now, fielding independent pitching will tell you something a little bit different. We'll talk about that one another day. Anyway, that's my opinion there of the 1949 Giants. To be honest with you, I think that this team has a very good chance of doing something very, very interesting in this replay. I still think the Pirates will be up there near the end as well. Now, you might tell me that, hey, this is cheating. You shouldn't use players, more often than they did in real life. I would say that that's kind of up for debate. Personally, I don't see the problem with doing that, right? I mean, I can always say, hey, man, it's my replay, so go screw off. But that's not necessarily the case. I mean, we do want to play it in a way that's fair. We don't want to give a team a unfair advantage. But we also want to play in a way that's interesting, right? And the replay maybe is not going to be so interesting, if we end up having, a guy who has an awful on-base percentage or an awful OPS or whatever, who is starting a whole ton of games when he doesn't really need to, right? The idea behind the replay is that we want to play it in a way so that the teams are being competitive with one another, and so that so that we have to, or so that we're spending a lot of our time thinking about, how would this happen if this came up in real life, right? Instead of spending all this time thinking about, we have to do exactly what happened and follow the lineups exactly, right? We'll talk about that one another day, but that's sort of my feeling on the subject. Apologies for the ramble. This is what happens when it's late at night, and I will see you tomorrow with more action. Talk to you then. Bye.